In May 2022, voters will decide on a new proposed 30-year bond that, if passed, would raise about $723 million. Part of the bond money would go to proposed modernization projects in 44 schools across the district. The biggest proposed project is the complete rebuild of Beaverton High School. The rebuilt school would likely sit where today's soccer fields are, along Southwest Farmington Road. The building would be 3 or 4 stories tall and roughly 290,000 square feet. It would utilize the existing cafeteria building, which was constructed in 2002. As part of the proposed project, the current high school would be torn down and become a parking lot. The new concession stand at the football field would stay, and improvements would be made to the athletic fields. The original part of Beaverton High School dates back to 1916. Over the years, more than a dozen separate additions have been made, resulting in an assortment of plumbing, mechanical, and electrical systems. Some areas don't have firewalls. Other areas have unreinforced masonry, which doesn't meet current seismic standards. Inside, the school's halls are more narrow than average, and the ceiling heights are lower than at most of our high schools. In 2019, the district hired an outside consultant who did a comprehensive facility condition assessment of Beaverton High School. The school earned one of the worst scores in the district, and it's the only high school in the district with a seismic rating below collapse prevention, meaning in the event of an earthquake, the high school is at risk of partial or full collapse. Other proposed projects that would be addressed if the bond passes: a new entrance would be built that would allow staff to see the entire front of the school. All classrooms would be under one roof. The auxiliary buildings on the other side of Southwest Erickson would not be used for classroom space. Special education plus CTE programs like health, careers, and marketing would have designated areas. And by rebuilding Beaverton High School, it would eliminate about $53 million worth of deferred maintenance. If the proposed bond passes, the rebuilt high school would accommodate 1,500 students, which is in line with future enrollment projections. In all, the cost of the proposed Beaverton High School project is estimated at $253 million. If the bond passes, the rebuilt school would be slated to open in fall 2027. The proposed bond is estimated to initially cost taxpayers approximately $2.34 per $1,000 of assessed value and decline over time. That's an increase of approximately 25 cents per $1,000 of assessed value over the current tax rate. For a homeowner with an average assessed property value of $303,000, that's an increase of about $76 per year. If the bond does not pass, Beaverton High School would not be rebuilt and the new tax rate would not be implemented. Still have questions? Feel free to submit them on our bond webpage by hovering over the question mark.